So for this music video I shot for Owen Vincent's new single, Life Gets in the Way. He wanted to recreate a 3-second sequence he saw in another music video where a shadow is cast and the singer, him, is stood behind a sheet and that's all you can see. We got this location, West K Studios in Gosport, which is like a big church. We decided to do it there because it was such an awesome location to shoot at. It was a very interesting concept and one that I hadn't seen done throughout a whole music video, so that intrigued me even more. And yeah, we just rolled with it, and this is what we created.
Maybe it's late and I'm wide awake, but sometimes it seems life gets in the way.
It took about 90 minutes to set up fully. It was a lot of trial and error involved, and the most tricky thing was battling the light that was already behind him, cast from this big window. So we knew the lighting we put on Owen had to be just as, if not more, than the light that's coming in from the window behind us to actually create the shadow and see him outlined. For this, I used a big white sheet that I actually got from my girlfriend's family. They didn't have a use for it anymore, but I knew one day I would be able to use it. And today was that day. So we found these two tripods that are actually in the studio, and this big bar was, funny enough, the same length as the actual white sheet. So that worked out quite well. We essentially taped this bar onto these top of these two tripods and put the white sheet over the top, and we almost created a hook on the white sheet by rolling up half of the white sheet, pegging that together, and then hooking that over the bar, and then letting the rest fall down. And it actually created a really nice look. It didn't look rubbish at all. It fitted the scene and set really nicely. And because of the symmetry actually in the church, that it kind of just blended in and looked really nice anyway. We're actually really lucky that the studio actually had these frames, otherwise we'd have found it pretty tricky to actually to pull off. So once we had that in place, we knew we had to try and cast the shadow through the white sheet. So for this, I used a ARRI Junior 650 light, and that was the main light source coming through the sheet. And then I had two cheap £80 Amazon lights either side that just added a little more texture around the sides and just adding more light to Owen to actually try and get that shadow through. And after a lot of trial and error and a lot of moving the lights around, we finally got it set up. And the tricky thing after that was finding out where Owen needed to be in relation to distance from the sheet and the light. And we kind of landed on him just being in the middle. We kind of moved him forward and then backwards and vice versa with the lighting and the sheet. But we found that putting him in the middle actually created probably the best shadow that we could get out of it. And I think it turned out really nicely. Let me know what you think and if you would have done anything differently. But this method seemed to have done the job, so we rolled with it. An interesting note is the original plan for this music video was just going to be Owen behind the sheet and it was just going to be the shadow. But when it got to the instrumental part of the song, where it's fairly hectic, he wasn't really doing much behind the sheet. And after he done the first performance, we kind of spoke afterwards and were like, I feel like we could be doing more, especially with the scene and the setting we were in. We could get more out of the music video, especially for that hectic part. So we landed on just him strolling aggressively around the church and me just absolutely flying around him with the camera as chaotic as possible. And on the Blackmagic, I actually changed the shutter to 360, which essentially means there's more motion blur in camera. So with this effect in mind, I knew with just getting that extra in-camera motion blur that I was going to go in post and add the blur myself. When I'm moving around him, it has more of like a chaotic effect, and there's not really, you can't really focus on something, and adds to the effect and the hecticness of the song. And actually there was a point in the middle of the day at the back of the church, the lighting was just perfect through the windows, and I got my haze can out and just sprayed loads of haze over it and got these really cool pictures and got an awesome shot like this. I used overlays in this music video. Now I'm actually one to be against using like fake flares as transitions. I think they're really tacky, and if they're overused in videos, it just looks lazy. Like you just like the visuals aren't good enough, so you have to add that sort of transition over the top. Now they do have their time and a place, don't get me wrong, and I feel like this was their time and a place. This is actually the first time I've ever used them, but I felt like in this instant the cut just needed a little bit more oomph, and with all the overlays I was using anyway, like the grain and like the filmic look anyway, it did kind of suit it, and the flare was orange, so it suited the theme and the colors of the video, so it worked out well. But I'm not one to use them at all, and I do normally steer way clear of them because they're just not my cup of tea, but it did work in this instance, so please forgive me. If you haven't already, please check out mine and Owen's new music video, Life Gets in the Way. We're super proud of it, and I would be very interested to hear your thoughts on it. And check out Owen's music as well, because he's a super talented guy, and he's definitely someone you should keep an eye on. But yeah, that is all from me, and I will see you soon.